Half in the bag. Get out of my car and into my dreams.
Oh, fuck my life. Oh, what happened? No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
What? Oh, fuck. What is this? How did this get on my head?
What the fuck happened here last night?
What? Oh, there was a bunch of weird people that came over. We all started drinking. Things got really out of hand. And then Zach Galifianakis showed up. And then after that, I don't remember anything that happened.
Holy fuck, that's just like that movie. Castaway.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah, I think we have to take a break from drinking.
I think you're right. And that's enough.
Yeah.
Oh, the VCR is gone. How can we continue to milk this man out of all of his money if we don't have the VCR? Oh shit, here he comes.
What are we gonna do?
We gotta, like, hide it somehow.
What's going on here? Why, that's the perfect place to put my beautiful picture of black baby Jesus.
Yeah, we thought so too.
Whatever, I'm off to the movies. I'm going to see Conan the Barbarian. My doctor wants to see if my new seizure medication is working. Look, my cat's in the bedroom, leave him alone. He's working on a project.
Hey guys, welcome to Half in the Bag, and on this episode we're going to be discussing two pointless remakes that have already flopped and been forgotten about, Fright Night and Conan the Barbarian. Now, I've seen the original versions of both these movies, and Mike, you have not.
No, I haven't.
So we may have a slightly different perspective on them.
Yeah, but can I correct you on something, though? Conan the Barbarian is not a remake, but it's a reboot, because it's not the same story as the original. So, you know, just FYI, maybe before you do a movie review, you should check your facts. Idiot.
I only need to know one fact. James Earl Jones is not Edward James Olmos.
I'm sorry, but that fact, too, is wrong!
Shit.
Now listen to me. We graphed up all the disappearances. That's you right there in the center next to his house. I really hate to be the one to tell you this, but that guy, your neighbor, Jerry, yeah, he's a vampire.
So Fright Night is a movie about a high school kid who discovers that a vampire has moved in next door. Dun, dun, dun. So, Fright Night, what did you think about it?
Well, I like the original Fright Night a lot. It's not a great movie, but it's a fun horror movie. It's a lighthearted horror movie. It's kind of like the perfect sort of like Halloween party movie. I think of it like movies like Creepshow, where they're not very intense, not very dark. They're just sort of fun. And this movie kind of seemed to be going for that same sort of tone, but everything they changed to sort of justify it being a remake was for the worse, pretty much. A lot of the elements that are in the first movie make it a more cohesive story than this version.
That's what I noticed about the movie right off the bat, was that it was very bland, and that there were interesting creative elements, like the Las Vegas showman, who's the vampire hunter character. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then it's like, oh, not really. And then
It doesn't go anywhere.
What you guys mentioned about the original was that that character was like a horror movie host, and that Charlie, the main character, was kind of a nerdy guy who was into horror movies. And so he goes to the horror movie host for help, even though he's just like a TV show fraud. Charlie
goes to him for help, and throughout the course of the movie, he sort of like learns to become this vampire hunter, which is the character he's been playing on TV, and it's a more interesting arc for that character than in this version, where there's like some stupid hackneyed backstory that a vampire killed his parents.
Hey guy, you've been watching me. I've been watching you. Your mom, there's a kind of neglect gives off a scent. And your girl, she's ripe.
I didn't find the movie like horrible. I found it enjoyable.
It's not terrible,
No.
but-
I think the problem with it for me was, one, it didn't go too far in using those fun elements of the movie. The kind of, the high school kids are investigating something and nobody believes them.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not a vampire next door. You're crazy. I've got the evidence. Let's go. And they ride their bikes and all that kind of stuff is I thought could have been fun, but it was played sort of blah.
Yeah, those elements are in the original. The original plays out more as a mystery a bit, and it has more of sort of a Rear Window vibe to it.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff early on with Charlie, like looking out his window and seeing like a coffin getting moved into the neighbor's house in the middle of the night, and really sort of like classic, horror movie stuff.
Yeah. Colin Firth played sort of a generic villain. By the way, why was Colin Firth in this movie?
I don't know.
It was interesting casting. I mean, why would Colin Firth pick this film after just winning an Oscar for The King's Speech?
You smell that? It's your fear.
The one thing that stuck out to me was that this movie had a 120-minute long running time.
Yes.
For those of you who don't do math, that's exactly 2 hours. And the movie felt like exactly 3 hours.
It kind of felt like halfway through the movie, everyone just sort of gave up. And the second, there's like 3 climaxes. There's 3 big sequences that feel like this should be the end of the movie sequence.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them, like in a row, and then those like tiny little bits in between.
Yeah, well, there's that whole sequence where, there's a bit of a setup where it's like, there's a vampire next door. No, there's not. Mom, lock the door. What are you talking about? You're crazy, that sort of stuff. And then it kind of all comes to a head when Colin Firth is like, I'm just going to blow your house up.
What's that?
That particular scene comes off as like a desperate act of the villain at the last act.
Exactly.
Of the movie. Like,
yeah.
I was like, is this the climax? Then after a while I realized, I'm like, oh, this is only like the second act.
What were you calling it? Start and stop.
Starty stoppy.
Yeah.
Where it's like. I guess you could call it the Return of the King syndrome as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Roll credit. Oh.
Yeah.
Roll credits. Oh.
I'm gonna end him or he's gonna end me. That's how it's gonna be.
So, Fright Night, did you enjoy it overall?
It was all right. It was all right. As someone that's a big fan of the original, this is sort of like the same story, just not told as well.
So yeah, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I enjoyed this movie. I did not hate it. I had fun watching it. It felt long.
Yeah.
There were some interesting scenes. I like the scene when it's fairly obvious, but I like the scene when he's trying to get into his house to get the beer. He does this like really lame setup. He's like, "You have any beer? I got a chick coming over."
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And then he drops the beer on the ground and he's like, "You want me to come in and help you?" He's like, No.
Yeah.
And it went on really long.
It did.
Again, it went on longer than it needed to, almost twice as long as that scene needed to be. But it was a fun little tense scene, and there was a couple of moments like that, and I liked the ending. Conveniently, there is a stake that was blessed by Saint Michael or whatever. And,
The magic plot device stake, it's called.
the magic plot device stake that if you kill the head vampire, all of his other vampires revert to normal people. And then the girlfriend character gets bitten and she becomes a vampire. So there is a way to save the girlfriend character.
Yes, very convenient.
Yeah, but when they bit her, they had not introduced that yet. So it was like, oh, he's got to save her. And on a story level, that really raised the stakes. Do you hear that?
Yeah, it sounds like a siren.
It's the pun police. Oh, get my shotgun. They're not taking me without a fight.
Our next film is Conan the Barbarian, a touching coming-of-age tale about a young boy learning to deal with the death of his parents by hitting other people with a giant sword. Over the years, he becomes a man and learns that he doesn't always have to hit people with a giant sword, just most of the time.
I see a journey. A man crossing the sands.
A knight?
Mike, what did you think of Conan the Barbarian?
I was thoroughly entertained by Conan the Barbarian in a barbarian sort of way. It is possibly the worst film I've ever seen. In screenplay terms.
Yes.
It's the most simplistic screenplay I think I've ever witnessed on screen. Conan's a boy, his father dies, there's the guy that killed his father, and he's got to get him.
Yeah.
And normally that sounds like a premise to a lot of movies, but there are other things that happen woven in throughout the story. There's plot twists, developments that happen in the story. One character betrays another. The bad guy's really not up to that. He's up to this, and other things can happen. This, no.
Nope.
And it's entirely filler, the whole movie.
Yeah.
And at exact intervals, they have utterly pointless action scenes. Like, they go on a ship as a place of refuge for something, and then while they're on the ship, guys swing in and attack the ship for no reason. They fight them off, and they all go, "Yay!" And then it's like the next scene. It's like whenever the script needed an action scene to keep the audience from falling asleep, they would throw one in. And literally, there was nothing else that happened in the movie.
No.
There was one little minor thing that happened where there was a guy with an eye patch who said in the early part of the film, "Conan, if you ever storm the bad guy's castle, call on me because I know the way in." And Conan goes, "Whatever, fuck you," and leaves. And then later on, he goes and finds him, which is, of course, the famous, soon-to-be famous bar scene.
Yes, the shortest scene in cinema history, where Conan's gonna go find this guy that pledged an oath to help him someday. And he goes into the place, and he says, "I'm looking for this guy, where is he?" Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he grabs the bar owner, and he's like, I'm solving a mystery here. Where is this guy?" And he's like, "I'm right here." And then it's like, oh okay, let's go.
Moving on.
And it's like, oh, okay, that's that. But Conan was also the best comedy I've seen all summer.
Yes.
And I've seen a few comedies this summer, but that was the one that had the most genuine laughs from me.
I laughed harder and more often in this movie than anything in a long time.
Yeah. Our friend Rich Evans saw the film with us, and if you know Rich Evans and you know his laugh, you can imagine what the screening was like.
Luckily, we were the only ones in the theater,
Yes.
so it would have been tough to try and stifle the laughter in this film.
Yeah. When it started, I was just like, please God, don't let anyone else come in this theater. And thankfully, no one showed up.
Yeah.
This is the summer, of course.
Yeah.
So theaters should be completely empty. You're doing a great job, Hollywood.
I will follow you to hell.
So the film opens with Morgan Freeman reading ridiculous narration.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you have Morgan Freeman doing your voiceover, that's like something they would do in a parody movie.
Right.
Like immediately, you're like, Morgan Freeman?
Like an old Mel Brooks like fantasy, like Men in Tights.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Once upon a time in the land of. So it opens like that, and there's maps, and they're talking about fantasy lands of something, and they're like,
It's long and convoluted.
it's long and it just immediately lost me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care. When does Conan hit someone with a sword? and it just starts, and it takes itself kind of seriously throughout the first part.
Yeah.
Until you see Ron Perlman in a gigantic beard. And he reminded me of Will Forte as the Falconer in Saturday Night Live. It came off as a comedy beard.
Yes.
Like I've been shipwrecked on this island my whole life, comedy beard. And so I started laughing immediately. Mm-hmm. And there's a ridiculously stupid battle that opens the film. Conan's mother is going into labor on the battlefield.
For whatever reason, they let the pregnant woman, 9 months pregnant woman, go onto the battlefield to fight.
She's on the battlefield. She's like, I'm having a baby. So Ron Perlman comes out and he performs a C-section operation with a knife in under 2 seconds without even looking.
Yeah, he's looking in her eyes the entire time, and he just goes,
Takes a knife, and then he pulls a rubber baby out in the same shot. And the theater was just filled with laughter by the three of us. The rubber baby's going like this, with his arms, and then he lifts it up in the air. And remind you, we're in the middle of a battle.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he takes the time to hold the baby up in the air and go, "This is Conan!"
You could probably do a drinking game with this movie for how many times people put things up in the air and yell.
Yes.
Ah!
Behold! In despair! Your new master!
You failed to mention the explosion.
Yes, the explosion in the prologue.
Yes.
How could I forget? They show some sort of city or castle in the distance.
It's like a miniature.
And they show it explode, but it's from such a distance, and the scale and the speed of the explosion is completely wrong.
It's like,
Yeah, it looks like if you took a can of WD-40 and a lighter and went, and then they composited on top of there. And it's like, no.
that was the first big laugh of the movie.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
'cause it goes,
yeah.
And it looked like a cheap effect you would make, like a first-year college student would make in After Effects. Like
Yeah.
They have some plug-in explosion that they just add there. And it was like, oh, that wasn't a castle exploding.
Yeah.
Castle exploding, the fire needs to go slower. Things in miniature need to be shot in slow motion.
Yes.
Because big things blow up and fall slower than little things.
Yes.
It's how gravity works on the planet Earth. But yeah, it's laugh-inducing.
Yeah, yeah.
And the film isn't entirely like hysterical all the way through.
No, well, that's the great thing is that there's stretches of the movie where it's like, oh, okay, it's getting tedious, it's getting boring, but then something amazing happens that makes you laugh uncontrollably for extended periods of time, and that sustains you for another, 5-10 minutes.
But there was a really funny scene where Conan puts a guy on a catapult and launches him across.
We should talk about the fact that this movie, a lot of the scenes are edited to perfect comedic timing.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the intention, but they accidentally edited this movie as a comedy, where it's like the beats are perfect for a comedy beat, and they elicit laughter.
Yeah, one example is there's a guy that Conan cuts his nose off.
Yes.
In the beginning part of the film, and he goes, "Ow, my nose!"
Conan cuts his nose off. You see the nose fly off his face, and the guy immediately goes, "Ah, my nose!" And it's like, you don't say that unless you're in a comedy.
Right. Well, when they reintroduced that character again, many years later, when Conan finds him, he follows him to some place because he knows that he can lead him to the bad guy.
Yeah.
So he follows him to the place, and he goes, "Where's, missing nose guy," whatever his name was. And they're like, "Oh, he's indisposed at the moment." Then hard cut to him like cranking this thing on some poor guy's hands.
Torturing a guy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this flat angle, and he's like, "Ah!" And then they cut back.
Cut back.
And it's just, we started laughing. And I don't know if it was intentional, that they wanted it to be funny.
I don't know. Did they want it to be funny when Conan goes in and rips the guy's nose cover off and sticks his finger in the nose hole to torture him? Was that supposed to be like, oh, he's doing that, he's a barbarian?
Yeah.
No, it's funny when you stick your fingers in a guy's open nose hole.
Yeah. But something noteworthy about the Conan movie and movies in general nowadays is that no one says, wow, this movie had great special effects.
No.
They would say that in the 80s and the 90s, but no one says that anymore because now it's just like a given that movies, even of this caliber, and this movie had a fairly big budget actually. I think it was like $70 million.
It was, yeah.
But
I was shocked when I found out how much this movie cost.
you should reword that to saying, I was shocked at finding out how much they spent on this movie.
Oh, yes.
Good special effects are kind of a given now. It's a good thing though, in a way, because if movies like this keep tanking, they'll have to actually make the story good.
Oh.
And they'll have to actually make a good movie, because people aren't wowed by special effects. It's like when I saw Avatar, that was like a wow special effects kind of movie. All it is effects, the whole thing.
Right.
And
The story is super simplistic.
The story's super simplistic, but then at the end, the movie ended and some guy behind me goes, what a bunch of crap. It's like,
Just disregarding everything.
Yeah, like all that hard work, all that time put into a movie like that, all those amazing visuals that would have been just like mind-blowing 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they just go, whatever, what's next?
Yeah.
And so it's like, special effects, especially 3D, no one cares
Yeah.
about 3D or special effects anymore. And during Conan, I was I was thinking back to a time in the mid to late 90s when there was sort of a small revival of these types of movies, the Conan warrior kind of movies, around the time of Xena, the warrior princess.
Yes.
But there was a movie called Kull the Conqueror, which starred Kevin Sorbo.
He was a warrior slave until fate made him king.
Long live Cole! All slaves of Illusia are now free.
Kevin Sorbo works at my gas station, by the way. Maybe we should get him on the show and ask him about Kull the Conqueror.
No, sure, yeah.
But anyways, Kevin Sorbo starred in this film, and that movie and movies like the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh man,
with Marlon Wayans.
The amazing Dungeons and Dragons movie.
But where those movies, they didn't have computer graphics that they do now. They didn't have the complete merging of the green screens and visuals to where everything's really just like seamless and
Yeah.
It was just really lots of practical stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of crappy sets and stuff like that. And I would have hated to see what the Lord of the Rings films looked like if they were made in 1990. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, matte paintings are cool and all, but there's a limit.
Yeah.
And like George Lucas said, special effects are a tool,
Yeah.
a means of telling a story.
As long as we're talking about special effects, I wanted to bring up a sequence that was in Fright Night that, one, looked terrible, and two, was a shameless ripoff of the sequence in Children of Men, where there's a camera in the middle of a car, and it's doing like 360 camera shots, and there's all sorts of exciting action happening outside the car. It's the exact same structure, exact same shot, but in Fright Night, it was all completely green screen backgrounds. All the effects, them driving, it was all completely done on a green screen, and it's obviously done on a green screen. It looked pretty bad, as opposed to Children of Men, where it was all done real camera in a car on a real street doing the 360. They had a whole big rig.
Yeah, I've seen
and
that.
there's a couple little digital, effects to enhance certain things, but for the most part, it was real, and it feels real, and
Yeah.
it adds to the intensity of the scene.
Well, it wasn't that the CGI in Fright Night was bad and noticeable, but that's a different perspective because Fright Night needed more practical effects. Fright Night needed to have real blood and the smoke from a smoke machine.
Monster
and
makeup.
Monster
I
makeup.
miss prosthetics.
Yes.
The makeup effects in the original Fright Night are like classic and great looking.
Yeah, that came off as computery. It all felt very digitally, especially the end. Most of it felt real digitally.
Yeah.
Digital.
Felt too clean and too phony.
Yeah.
It should be, especially with a horror movie, it should feel more sort of organic and gritty.
Right. Organic is the exact appropriate term because it's about people dying and
Yes.
blood.
Right.
And what you're trying to say with your comparison to Children of Men is the 360 car thing with the green screen is a complete inappropriate use of special effects technology where it's not needed at all.
Right. So, considering that seems to be no end in sight to remakes, what would you like to see remade?
I would love to see a remake of Beaches with Bette Midler. Except this time Barbara Hershey should be played by Anne Hathaway. But Anne Hathaway will have much more cancer, and it'll be CGI cancer. And then when they're on the beach and the sun is setting and she's about to die, she explodes. And Bette Midler won't do the theme song. No Wind Beneath My Wings crap for this movie. The theme song will be done by Kesha, and it'll be called I'm Sorry You Can't Go Out to the Club With Me Because You Died of Cancer. I'm sorry you can't go out to the club tonight because you died of cancer. I'm crunk. I'm glad I don't have the cancer. I'm glad I didn't die of cancer. Cancer rhymes with Prancer, who was one of Saint Santa's reindeers.
We should really look into figuring out where the VCR is, or we're going to lose our jobs.
You're right. And I find it awful funny that that's the only thing that got stolen here last night.
Yeah.
There were a lot of strange people here, too.
There may be more to this than we even realize.
We need to work at uncovering this mystery before it's too late.
Oh! Oh my God! Oh!
Mr. Plinkett, what the hell happened to you?
I made a wrong turn. Instead of seeing Conan the Barbarian, I accidentally went to Conan the Barber. Oh! Oh my God! Oh! Do you think I can get another barber to fix this? Somebody kill me. Somebody kill me, it hurts.